What happens when a media personality and a sex therapist grab a mic? You get Spill the Tea, where the tea is hot, the truths are unfiltered, and things sometimes get downright steamy. From sex and relationships to life's messy, hilarious, and shocking realities, Will Nash and Maria Orrego aren't holding back. It's about to get deliciously messy.
Okay, so if you have not seen Wicked or Wicked for Good, do us a favor, go and watch those movies and then come back to the Spill the Tea podcast.
Yes, because we're going to spill the tea on Wicked.
And there's nothing worse than like accidentally landing on something on the internet and you're like, oh, I want to watch the movie first, or I want to watch that new episode first before I actually, you know,
Yeah.
know what they're talking about or get it on the lore. And I mean, this is all about the Wicked lore. I feel like it's something that we're both in our own ways with our own histories and origins. And so many people listening, know Wicked. Like this play, now movie, has been out for years. How did you first hear about it? And what was your first experience with Wicked? Was it the movie? Did you see the show?
So it was definitely the movie. I will say I've been like a musical fanatic probably since I was born. That's probably an exaggeration. However, I love musicals. When they make movies about musicals, I don't initially jump on the bandwagon because I'm like a live theater girl and they've ruined a few good good musicals in movies, right? So I actually didn't watch the first Wicked for a while, and then I was convinced to watch it, and I fell fully in love with it. And I was like, I should have definitely jumped on the hype train for this one.
Yeah, for me, it's funny. I was trying to, when the movie came out, I wanted to see it. Like I knew I wanted to see it. But I'd seen the play once in Toronto. But I realized that was 10 years ago before the movie came out with the Toronto cast. So not like the iconic like Idina Menzel, Kristen Chenoweth that of course everybody knows from Broadway, or as I feel like not as many people have seen it, but like they know of it or they've seen the clips or because that was always such a big deal like back in the day, and still the legacy of that is still alive and well.
Yes.
Um I think for me, it was like I grew up like even like before Wicked, like the original like 1939, The Wizard of Oz, literally like it. I basically tell people that's like my favorite movie, right?
Really? I didn't know that. That's like actually your favorite movie.
Yeah, like it's what for sure my favorite childhood movie, right? Because I mean, actually, this is like I have, I know that movie. I like, love everything about it. I have like when I was like 13, I got like this like basically a coffee table book on the Wizard of Oz. I remember being a kid and watching all the specials and reading it. Like I was fascinated not just with the movie, but with the behind the scenes and all the
Oh,
crazy things
yeah.
that were happening to Judy Garland and the Tin Man's makeup and the witch being lit on fire. Like there's just I
Ah,
find it so fascinating, like that sort of thing, right? So when I had actually first went to go see Wicked, the play, I was like, honestly, my first reaction was like, I don't know how to feel about it because like the
mm,
Wizard of Oz and the story was so ingrained in my mind. And I enjoyed the play. I remember enjoying the play when I saw it, but I remember there was just so much happening with the play on
mhm,
stage
mhm.
that I was like, okay, what is going on? Like, so you're telling me that like Elphaba is the Wicked Witch, like is the Wicked Witch of the West, the Wicked Witch of the East, like, and then all the intertwining stories, and realizing that obviously, based on a book, the Wicked play, then a
Mhm.
play for 20 years, and now we have these movies. And it's
Yeah.
one of these things where it's like, what I really appreciated about the movies is I think they did a really good job with kind of explaining the story and the history
Mhm.
between these two women. Not that they didn't do an amazing job for the theater, but I feel like if you're going to see a live musical for the first time and like they're singing, especially in the musical, like the stage
Yes.
play, they're singing like there's not as much dialogue as there is in the actual movies, right? So it's
Mhm.
like I feel like if you're gonna go see Wicked the musical, like you need to watch it a couple of times before you're like, oh, okay, so that's the connection and that's how everything happens, right? So
Yeah.
um One of the things I thought was really cool too is kind of like an offshoot of the movie, especially going to see the first one. What I really liked about this, and obviously like Cynthia Erivo is incredible, right? I
So
also kind of like the fact that like when I saw like I was always a fan of Ariana Grande's, but she was going through it a little bit before this movie. And like I really felt like she had won over a lot of people who were like, the stuff that she kind of went through as like a teenager and as a young girl and all of this stuff. And I like the fact that she really sort of like found her footing with this role. And I mean,
yeah.
I think she absolutely did a phenomenal job in that role. And I think that, I mean, I know there's all these memes and stuff about Cynthia and Ariana online and the crying and the this and the that and the whatever. But I mean, I really have honestly been obsessed with I've rewatched the first movie so many times before I went and saw the second one. If you know the story, which again, we can kind of spoil it a little bit because we're giving you that warning to turn us off until you actually go and see the movies. Um, I was definitely preparing myself for the dark second half. And I know a lot of the criticism with that has been like, well, the first one was just, you get popular, you get Defying Gravity, you get No One Mourns the Wicked, right? And then the second one, like, it really goes darker. So that's
Mhm.
been a lot of the criticism online. For me, I didn't mind that because I knew that was happening. And I love how they tied the story together in the end. What did you think?
I I think even though I was prepared for, like, the quote unquote "darker" second half, I did find it slower than the first movie, and I think they like, from even just, like, a movie perspective, the sets weren't as, like, amazing. It's the choreography wasn't as, like, tight as the first one, and that's just, like, my theater critic of just, like, there was things that I found that was lacking. I think the 2 actors are incredible, and they're incredible vocalists, and I was insanely impressed by Ariana Grande. Like, I knew she had a great voice, but the fact that she had that role, she acted so well, and she was able to pull off the vocals, it was, like, in that sense, it was incredible. I don't know, and maybe this is the therapist in me, I don't know if it teaches, and I know it's, like, written this way, but I don't know if it teaches the right message to, like, young girls. You know what I mean? Like, even when I was listening to the song, like, "No Good Deed," where she's, like, basically saying, like, "No good deed goes unpunished," and, like, she's trying to, like, save her, like,
Yeah.
partner at the time, and then it basically is like, "That's it, I'm done," and then she just, like, gives up. I know that it's part of the story, and I know it's part of the musical, but I think as, like, maybe because now I'm older and I'm looking at it that way, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if it's, like, the best message." And then there was all, like, the weird love things that were happening, um,
See, and
and the
it's funny, right? Because
relationship.
sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny because like, to me, that whole obviously that, that's like, I guess, a climax for Elphaba's character in For Good and a really a turning point for when things really go dark. But I think for me, when I think about how the movie wrapped up, and I know I think it slightly wraps up like similar, but somewhat slightly different to the original,
Mhm.
is like when the two of them are singing and emotional and singing For Good. And I think
Mhm.
for me, like when I was watching that scene and listening to that song, it made me think of so many people in my life that I've met who are still here, who are not here, when I've been going through a hard time and like, whether or not we're still friends, whether or not
Yeah.
we're still connected, you've been that person to me that you come into my life and literally has changed you for good. And I thought of so many people, and I think that's why I got emotional watching that scene on top of them just like completely giving their absolute all doing this.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I mean, I think that I think I understand the darkness of it, but I also can understand why people might be like, because again, I think some of the, with the exception of For Good and I guess No Good Deed, I feel like
Mhm.
most of the most popular, pardon the pun,
Right. Nice.
songs are in the first one, right? Because like
They
Defying
are.
Gravity and of course Popular and even No One Mourns the Wicked, right? So it's like I think
Yeah.
that they're like the more like commercialized, even if you've never watched Wicked, never seen it, don't care
Mhm.
about it, you have heard that song, right? It's like
Yeah.
saying like if you've never watched The Bodyguard, you know I Will Always Love You.
Yes. Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think you're right. The first one had those powerful, um, Hollywoodized, like, songs, right? That everyone's, like, belting out even on the radio. The second one was just a little heavier, right? So
It
I
was
don't
heavier,
think
yeah.
yeah, I don't think it gave the same, like, oomph to
Yeah.
it,
One of
which
my
again,
favorite
I
scenes in the
appreciate.
movie one of my favorite scenes in the movie is, like, the last, like, minute of so I'm going back to the first one. The last
Mhm.
minute Ariana is by herself and she kinda opens up that door or it's just already open, and, like, all of the pink lights are shining out, and she just kinda, like, lets out those last big notes, like, that to me is, like, a serotonin hit, right?
Yes.
And the other
Yeah.
thing too is like Ariana Grande previously to this thought of as like kind of like a pop girly, right?
Mhm.
I'm telling you, like no one, I mean, I think like in terms of like singing abilities of like people who are out there right now, like I mean, Cynthia I think has a different kind of voice, like a strong,
Yes.
I would say a stronger, but just very powerful voice.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it was funny hearing some of the other names that apparently auditioned for that role. I'm like, yeah, you could not have done that.
Oh, I actually haven't even heard of who else was auditioning
It
for
was
that role. The casting was really well done.
It was really well done, and I think that it's like I watched the first one because the first one obviously is now on streaming and everything, right? I've
Yeah.
watched it like probably 5 or 6 times since it came out,
An unhealthy amount of times.
an unhealthy amount of time, and I can't explain that. Yes, I like the music. Yes, visually it's stunning, but it's what it does give you, or at least it gives me, is it's like, you can watch something or listen to something and it makes you feel happy or makes you feel like a certain way.
Yeah.
Like it hit a serotonin, right? And I think that it was with the movie, I think you get that, and it's just like it's like watching those comfort shows, right? Or listening to a song that you listened to when you were growing up. But I mean, yeah, I mean, with all the good stuff that we're talking about too, though, like there is no shortage of drama in this movie. And if the way it's presented is interesting, but if this was like happening in real life,
Oh, I
basically,
know.
these two
Yeah.
women, even before I mean, yeah, I guess the relationship does happen in the first one with Fierro, but even
Yeah.
making that decision, right? They both
Mhm.
wanted to go there. They both wanted to go to Oz. They both had that goal. And then, Elphaba's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. This guy is
Wow.
not all he's claimed to be. He's not this
Yeah.
magical, wonderful Wizard of Oz. But then Galinda decides to stay, right?
It's a complicated story. It's funny because I've always realized that after I became a therapist, I probably became the worst person to go to a movie with or to watch a show with because I'm, like, pinpointing, I'm like, childhood trauma. This person probably got hurt here." And, like, I'm, like, looking at their entire story. I'm like, "Oh, you need therapy." But this one was a hard one because there was so much to it, right? There was so much in, like, Elphaba's story has so much brokenness and so much pain and so much
Hmm.
neglect and abuse from her family, and also not knowing who her father is, like, that in and of itself adds so many issues. And then Galinda, like, the second movie when they showed, like, her as, like, a little child, and when her mom tells her, like, basically, "Just because you're cute, you're gonna get what you want," I was like, "Oh, that is so not okay to say to a kid," right? Like,
I know. I
there was
know.
a lot there that there's, like, so much for them to unpack, like, no wonder they walked all the way to Oz, like,
Walked all
right?
the way to Oz, and it's like one of these things, right, where it's like you walk away from that movie or that I say movie because that's what's out right now,
Yeah,
and it's like one of these things where you then think back or you go back and if you decide to watch the movies more than one time, then you think you pick something up that you didn't necessarily see in the
yeah.
first viewing. Now, I've never read the books, but I know people who have read the books, and like the movies are so I don't wanna say watered down, but apparently the books get really political, and they really
Oh,
dive into, the story even furthermore. Like, it's kinda like I've heard it's
Yeah.
a heavy read.
Yeah. I will say that my favorite, and this is like a ridiculous part to have a favorite, but my favorite part of the movie was when the wizard said, um, people will believe whatever you tell them. And where I come from, it's called history. And I was like, whew, like that one hit hard for me. Of like, wow, that is so true. Like we as humans have that psyche, right? Whatever's fed to you, whatever. And now it's social media. Whatever's on social media, people
Yeah.
believe, right? And we
Yeah.
take it as truth. And the newest diet of eating like a mushroom from who know who's where, whatever, we all think we're gonna become Victoria's Secret models. Like
It's
it's
true.
interesting how we do that as humans. But I loved how he was like, he said history, and I'm like, yeah, because we do kind of like twist a lot of stuff as humans of what actually happened or didn't happen. But it
I
was a
thought it was
very
yeah,
interesting movie. It was political though. Like the point was to be a little bit political.
yeah, and that's an interesting point too. I think the parts that hit for me the hardest were kind of like what I mentioned about like, the whole how they wrap up the second movie. That's actually one that to be honest, didn't like remember, but didn't spend a lot of time
Yeah.
thinking about. I think at the end of the first one, when kind of making that decision, I think the ones that hit the hardest with me were anytime there was like unrest in their relationship. So
Yeah.
even when in the second one, when it's hard not to say Ariana and Cynthia when when Glinda is there with Madame Morrible and the wizard, and the witch is like, sorry, Elphaba is causing all these issues allegedly. It's like, she's like, just do something with her sister.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's those moments where it's like, even in I think even in those close friendships, it's like you can see that there are those moments of brokenness, right? And I
Yeah.
think that even you might have a best friend, and as awesome as you are, even as a therapist, you've probably fallen. You've probably made mistakes.
Mhm.
You've probably, fucked up certain things in friendships along
Yeah.
the way. I've
Yeah.
made my mistakes.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're able to work through those mistakes. But that's the question, right? Is like,
Yeah.
I mean, who is the wicked one? Who is it really? And how do you come back from that? And the way that the movie ends, like the second movie, you're like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, I wonder, it's not supposed to necessarily have a third one, but it's like you do kind of wonder, right? Like,
Yeah.
what happens after the credits roll of Wicked for Good?
Yeah, that's true. Like, how do they become friends again? Do they reconcile? I think you touch on a really interesting point though. We're all human, right? And we've all had friendships. And I think when we're younger, I think we make more mistakes than when we're older because I
Yeah.
would say like we grow from those like really painful moments. But we've all had those moments, right? Where like maybe even like in the way that this movie shows like we like our best friend's partner, or we share the same crush, or we do have like a moment of like, well, if I do this then I win, I don't know, the school council election and she doesn't. Like whatever it is, right? Like there are those moments that we all have in life. I will say though, I think that it's more I'm going to be gender specific, but I think it's more catty in like women than it is
Hey, I'm glad you're
being
saying that on the podcast and not me. I'll let you have all the hate mail on that one.
I know. I'm gonna get called out. But it's true though. And maybe it's my generation. Like as a millennial who went through elementary school and high school, we went through a lot of stuff where like women were hating on women, and I'm actually loving the fact that women are standing up for women now and that we are being much kinder than we were in high school. But that is something that we all struggled with when we were younger, and it's icky to think about and it's icky to kind of bring up, but
And
it does happen.
but you raise an interesting point though. Like, again, I'm saying this as a man, but it's like, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I hope it's okay to say this. I feel like women are just starting to sort of support each other in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like, I still feel there is a lot of competition. There is a lot of, um, I don't really
Yeah.
want to say the word cattiness, but a lot of conflict between them, because I think that, like,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of women are probably tired of the things that you went through and said, listen, like, there's room for both of us here, right? And usually,
Mhm.
let's be honest, a lot of times, maybe not every time, but a lot of times, it is the men in their lives who have led them to sort of be pitted against each other or like other things that other people are saying, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love to hear though, and I obviously know this about you, that you're someone who celebrates other people in general, but women,
Mhm.
yes. I feel like it is a good lesson in that way. I also, when you were talking about the whole thing about well, you kind of had, I guess, come back to what I said about friendships and making
Mhm.
mistakes and falling on your face and coming
Yeah.
back from these friendships. I find that when I've done things like that, if I will admit that I made a mistake, it's usually been because I've been like in my feelings over something or I've been feeling emotional about it. So then I kind of make
Mhm.
that like knee jerk reaction. And then, I've had that where a friend's called me out and said, well, like, why did you do that? Or this hurt
Yeah.
me or like whatever it is or whatever it was. I'm like, yeah, like then I feel really bad, right? Especially if I
Yeah.
value that friendship or that relationship, because then I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I fucked up that, right? I mean, but then there's been other situations that I've been in with friends where it's like they have perceived something that I had done or
Yeah.
something that I had said
Yeah.
differently than was my intention. And I've seen friendships come and go with that. And I'm like, well, and that was hard because I'm like, "You didn't really get to know me," is how I kinda felt, right?
Yeah. Okay, let
I
me
don't
ask
know.
you a
Yeah.
fun question though. Have you ever been interested in one of your friends' partners? I'm putting you on the spot.
Trying to think.
Not like, "Oh my god, my friend's husband's hot." Like, no, but like actually like crushed on somebody.
Trying to think. I mean, in terms of, like, so it's funny, I feel like I have more so been the other way, where it's like the person who I became friends with first is in a relationship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? More so than like, I have a friend, he started dating someone, and then all of a sudden I'm crushing on their partner, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
That's sort of in
Mhm.
my experience.
Yeah.
Does I kind of think it's a very similar situation. It doesn't make it any easier because then you also have to kind of navigate how you're going to act in those situations, right? And I mean, if you're going to be impulsive and first of all, you're taking a chance of your
Yep.
friendship and of the relationship with that other
Mhm.
person, and, it might not create for a happy ending. Like,
No.
have you been
Truly.
there?
So I've been on the opposite side. I actually had a very close friend of mine develop feelings for one of my ex-partners. We were still together at the time. And I like had like a spidey sense that it was happening, but um I remember being told that I was like out to lunch because I did ask and like of course it's the typical like, "Oh my gosh, how dare you accuse me of something like that?"
Right.
Like I love you, like, you're my friend, I would never blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, and the same thing when when I asked that person I was with, I'm like, "Hey, like, have you noticed anything?" Or, like, "Has there been vibes going back and forth?" And he, like, also said I was insanely crazy, but then when we ended our relationship, guess what side she chose?
Not yours?
Not mine, not
Not
mine.
yours.
No,
Yeah.
no. So that one I found interesting. I was like, "Oh, so maybe I wasn't as crazy as everybody thought I was." Um, but see,
Yeah.
those
It's true.
things, like, I just find those icky. It's like you can find, like, your friend's partner attractive or, like, emotionally mature, and you're like, "Wow, like, they're a great person." But I don't know, like, choosing to end a friendship because you're into someone, oh, I don't know. I
Yeah, I
feel like
think
it's one of those questions, like, when then we were never friends, like, we were never actually close friends.
and I think the thing is like it is hard to say when you are attracted to someone, right? And it's
Yeah,
hard to make the quote unquote right decisions.
yeah,
Um, you want to respect the relationship, especially if you know that this is a monogamous relationship too,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
I guess it's different if things are open in that sense, but would you rather have some form of a relationship with that person, i.e., a friendship, or would
mhm.
you rather risk it all for the sake of getting what you want in a romantic partner? Or is it even a romantic partner? Or is it just like a one night stand or a hookup, right? Like, what do you, like, what's more important to you when you go into these situations?
I also feel like in situations like that, it's one of those things of, like, it looks really good from afar, but then if you, like, actually start dating that person, kind of the illusion, like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And we've all had that, like, we've all had that crush that we're like, "Oh my god, they're the best," and then you date them and you're like, "Oh, this was
Oh,
dumb." Like, right? It's like that idea of, like, don't meet your heroes. It's kind of
yeah.
the same thing with certain crushes. It's like, no, that didn't work out for me."
'Cause I think it's true, right? I think that when it comes to crushes, especially with someone sort of in your inner circle who might not be available and who is attached,
Yeah.
and let's be honest, when it comes to crushes, I think I don't know, I know I have before really romanticized those crushes that I've had on someone, and not that
Yeah.
they're not personable, and not that they're not attractive, and not that they're not all those things I'm looking for in someone, but I'm sure that, what I'm thinking of, um let's just say Jeff, for lack of a better word. I'm thinking like Jeff Goldblum, the wizard. Let's just say let's just say Jeff. Um,
Oh my
you
god.
know, his partner, his wife or whatever, is probably having a completely different experience with him. And yes, he might do a lot of good things for her, but it's probably not the same way that maybe I'm crushing
No.
on him, right?
Exactly, it's
Um,
the ideal, right? We all have that where it's like, "Oh, that person looks so hot or so great," or, "Oh my gosh, look how he opened the door for so and so." And it's like, yeah, but in behind closed doors, and I know I say this with, like, the privilege of hearing a lot of the closed door stories in my office, but
yeah,
I think people when it's a crush, and you have to, like, you have to acknowledge that you know that person from a distance, and you don't know the person intimately, and you've also, I think, crushes, like you said, we create a fantasy in our head of who they
yeah,
are, and that's how affairs happen, right? I know, like, now we're, like, total tangent, but that is how affairs happen. You have an illusion of what is out there. Your partner is maybe becoming annoying, or you had a fight, or whatever it is, and then you see this, like, human that's shiny. Of course they're shiny. You know
yeah.
nothing about them,
He's
right?
you
And
think he's
then
coming in to save you, right? Like, metaphorically.
exactly. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
how affairs
Yeah.
happen, and then most people realize, like, "Oh, shoot, that was shiny," but it doesn't last.
It's a good point. And I mean, the other thing I actually wanted to bring up, and I hadn't planned this, but I do because it is a little bit of a different episode than our typical spill the tea format.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do it.
I want to talk about for a second, and I have my thoughts on this topic as well. Obviously, I think most people know, yes, the massive success of Wicked, but how it particularly resonates with the LGBTQ plus community. And I was curious on your thoughts on that, and then I'll dive in too.
You know what I loved? I loved there's a meme that came out of how, like, Cynthia is, like, she's bisexual, right? Am I getting that right?
She's queer. I believe she's bisexual. Yes.
Right, and then the actor, oh my god, that his name completely
The
escapes me.
dreamiest man, the sexiest man,
The sexiest man
Jonathan
alive
Bailey.
also
Hello.
identifies as queer, and I thought I loved I actually in the movie theater when I saw them, like, in their love scene, I was like, "This is awkward." Like, for
I
them,
know.
like, I could imagine, like, how weird that would have been of, like, having obviously, they're actors, they're professionals, they know what they're doing, but I just found that so interesting, and I actually loved that they did that, like, just as, like, a, "Yeah, we can do
Actors.
this."
But, like, I guess,
Yeah.
why do you think like, why do you think sorry, I'm trying to speak here and I can't get it out, is why do you think this one particularly resonates? Do you think there's anything because obviously, like, listen, like, I know a lot of gay people who love going to see Broadway shows and
Yeah,
love
don't we
their
just all like
divas and all
musicals?
that, right? I don't know. I think what it is with this, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the music is fantastic. It's
yeah.
timeless. You have these incredible actors and actresses playing it, playing the roles. But I also think that it's that sense of not fitting in and not
Mhm,
belonging and
mhm.
also, like, being different and kind of being othered, right? Is I think there's a lot of examples of that, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to Elphaba in the, and even just, like, being kinda, like, bullied a little bit when she was younger, right? And then
I agree. Yes, and I think they did that a little bit on purpose, right? That was the whole idea even of making her green. Like when they wrote the original, like the idea was also to kind of set her apart as different. I actually think what spoke to me in terms of the community more so was the fact that she had a voice when the community
yes.
for a long time didn't have a voice, right?
Mhm.
It was very much put down and bullied, but also like oppressed. what I actually love about this movie is that it does show that idea of I might be different, but I'm okay with that, and I'm willing to be different in order to defend what I believe in, and I think that's, like, the message that I got in terms of whether it's for the community, whether it's for religion, race,
Yeah.
appearance, whatever it is. I liked the fact that she was willing to stand up for that and willing to lose everything, right?
Literally willing to risk it all,
Yeah,
for a completely different, well, perception, right?
yeah, and she
Yeah,
was
no,
willing
and
to,
and
like,
I think that
do
it's just, like, it's interesting because I think all of these themes, there's no right or wrong in my mind, there's no right or wrong answer as to why it resonates, but I think that it really has resonated on top of the music and the performances are fabulous, but I think it's kinda like that you kind of almost like I said, when you're listening to a song like For Good and you kinda think back to your past friendships or past relationships,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I do love that, though. I do love that they took the opportunity to also prove that you're allowed to speak up. I'm a huge proponent for, like, using your voice and in
Yeah.
any way, right? And I think especially as a woman and as a woman who,
Yeah.
like, has gone through her fair share of, like, things, I think the ability to use your voice, and I do love that that character in particular was able to do that and was able to stand, and that at the end, I love that the story doesn't end with them together running Oz, because that would have
Yeah.
just been like, "Okay, cool," but, like, no, she stepped away. She quite literally walked through a desert, right?
Yeah,
And
and it's true
said,
too,
"Screw it."
and I love what you said about one of the things that you admire about the movie and the story and the roles is, kind of using your voice, like using that power that you have, right? But also in the sense of like, yeah, it wasn't like just because Elphaba, had her say, uh like, it wasn't like, I mean, we could argue for 2 hours that it was or was not a happy ending, right? She got
Yeah.
Fiero, right? So for her, that was a happy ending, but in
Yeah.
terms of the relationship with Glinda, they were
Mhm.
not, like, seen as together, right? So I
No.
think that, like, you do risk things,
Yeah.
and I've been there. When you are
Mhm.
using your voice, I think it's very important to use your voice, but
Mhm.
you may have some consequences of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just have to be willing to accept those consequences, right? Like, it's like if I'm struggling with my manager, right? And
Yeah.
I'm going in for a meeting once a week, because this
Mhm.
happens, and
Mhm.
you are kind of, respectfully raising your not raising your voice, but like speaking up, uh, you know, yes, you're able to kind of have your say,
Mhm.
but you also kind of can have a situation where maybe things don't end up for you as you want them to be.
100%, and it's about knowing what those consequences are, right? Like, when you use your voice, there will be consequences, good, bad, or ugly, but I think that we
Yeah.
all live and breathe better when we are allowed to use our voice. The other thing I will say, and maybe this is, like, the, like, quote, unquote, "feminist" in me, I love that she was the one that saved him, even if she did make him a scarecrow. But I do love that, like, there was that element too, because lots of movies, and I know, like, in our generation, the Disney movies had all this, like, Prince Charming saving the
Yeah.
poor princess that couldn't save herself. I did love that about the movie. I think they did a very good job of having 2 very strong female leads that had a voice in whatever
Yes.
way, regardless of whether it was good or bad or what they were using their voice for. They did their thing, right? And they were proud of it in their own independent way, and I thought that was actually pretty cool.
I agree, and that was very cool, and also, like, little fun sorta, because now that I know everything I need to know about the original Wizard of Oz, now I'm locked into everything Wicked and Wicked for Good, and I'm just like, my entire for when the movie first came out, like, that's literally all that I was seeing, right? Like, that's all, and I'm sure now that we're talking about this for half an hour, it's probably gonna pop up again on my phone tonight, but, I also appreciated that I think the reason I don't remember the author's name, who again, book before the play, then the movie. But like the reason why he did this, why he wrote this story, was because he was so fascinated with the character of the Wicked Witch of the West and how she was
Oh.
perceived as so evil and
Hmm.
where that all came from. And then you had on the polar opposite, you had Glinda the Good Witch, again, speaking more so in terms of the original Wizard of Oz right now,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
was just literally seen as almost like a fairy godmother, right?
I
So, and
love
then kind of like, and then, when you fast forward to like Wicked, you know, did you know her? Oh, I
Yeah.
knew her. Were you friends? Well, we met at school, like, things like that, right? Where it's like, it's interesting how I don't think this, I'll say this too. I don't think I appreciated the story because I only ever saw the play once. When I saw the play, I
Yeah.
feel like had I seen it multiple times, I might have appreciated the story more.
Yeah.
Now I appreciate the actual story and kind of like what goes into it and the creativity that went into it as well too. So that's
Yeah.
kind of we
Yeah.
would actually, I don't know if this is like a good way to wrap things up or not, but like I'd love to know, what your thoughts on the movie were. Like people listen to the Spill the Tea podcast, like
Yeah.
is this even sort of something that you would like us to kind of toss in every so often, right? Because again, we're not really having like an official question on this episode, which we normally have everything based around, but I feel like you can listen to this and maybe relate to some of the things, especially if you've seen the movie, right?
Yeah.
Um
Well, and we were talking about how we were gonna debrief the movie anyway, so why not film it as, like, I wonder what you had to do, because this is our first time actually talking about it. I think it was a great movie, and I love that it had so many themes, and we could probably go on for hours about
hours.
talking about, like, the relationship between sisters, infidelity, emotional betrayal, like, manipulation. There's so much in this movie that we could, like, pick apart, but I think we've talked about a lot of it that was wonderful. And I think right now the world could use some positive. So we're going to keep it positive today.
And that's just Ed. And thank you for listening, of course, to Spill the Tea with Will and Maria, the Wicked edition. I mean, look at, if you're watching
Yeah.
this online, Maria is decked. I've got my Wicked for Good t-shirt on, and Maria
I even
has
have a cape.
her cape, which,
Yeah.
I know you had a personal request for that. And you got your Wicked Witch of the hat on. Of course, don't forget to follow us across all socials at the Spill the Tea Pod. Review us, rate us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode when it drops. And that's a tea.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Spill the Tea. Got a burning question or a scandalous scenario? Slide into our DMs. We're ready to spill it all and maybe stir things up a little. Follow us at the Spill the Tea Pod, at Will Nash on Air, and at Sex Off the Pedestal.